engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Minot State Professional Communications Department proudly brings to you the Striha Sports Podcast with your host, Parker Striha.
Hello, and welcome back to the Striha Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Parker Striha, and on today's episode, I am going to be talking to one of the longest tenured coaches on the Minot State football coaching staff. I'm by no means a professional, but I do love talking about sports, so thank you for joining me. He is a graduate from Western Illinois University with a bachelor's degree in chemistry, biochemistry. He received his master's degree in education from Wisconsin Lutheran College. He was a 4-year starter at long snapper at both Western Michigan and Western Illinois. He has coaching experience as an offensive coordinator, running backs coach, tight end and fullbacks coach, and as an associate recruiting coordinator. He joined the Minot State football coaching staff in 2022, and he currently serves as the wide receivers coach and special teams coordinator. I am joined today by Mr. Mike Famiglietti. Coach Fam, thank you for joining me. How are you doing today?
Hey, Parker. It's great to be on here with you, man. I really appreciate the awesome intro. I'm definitely excited to get everything going. And, it's been a busy time here at Minot State ever since I got here in July. We hopped right into a season. Season didn't go exactly the way we wanted, but there's a lot of positive things, I think, that our guys can build off on in the future. And then, now adding the new addition and new leadership of Coach Ian Shields and our whole brand new coaching staff, other than me and Coach DeYoung, I think it's really going to be a positive thing for our players, and that's a big belief I have in coaching. Every place that I've been, whether it was, as a player at the FBS and FCS levels, or as a coach at FCS, D3, D2, NAIA, everywhere, it's all about the players. That's who the experience is for, and ultimately who we're really working for at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Everything that I do as a recruiting coordinator, and even just any young man I'm talking to convince them to come to our program and tell them about our program, it's to get our guys' experience better. That person that we bring in might be their best man at their wedding, might be someone who challenges them every single day on the depth chart, or it might be that person who gets them that one win that they really remember for their college career.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to jump right in, I have a couple get-to-know-you questions, just pretty simple, straightforward things. Don't have to really put a lot of thought into them, just kind of, for the viewers, just, like I said, just little simple questions that kind of give a little bit of insight on you. So number one is, what is your favorite type of pizza?
Oh, man. I'm a big pizza guy. Honestly, it's just like as Vince Vaughn says in Wedding Crashers, there's no such thing as bad pizza. It's just like music, baby, at a wedding. But my favorite kind of pizza, and it's a style of pizzas, I love the New Haven brick oven style pizza, right? Like Frank Pepe's and Sally's are known for out in New Haven. I was born out in Connecticut, so for me that's always been like a special treat, like to go back there and get that stuff with the little char on the bottom, right, with the brick oven and the coal fire. It's just incredible. Like, the stuff hasn't really changed since, 1925, and it's just been all in those families just to keep that tradition going. It's just unique, and it's like you don't even really need toppings on it, and the way they call it the abyss, the abyss right there, it's just incredible. Here in Minot, honestly, I've been a big fan of like every pizza I've really found. Like, Plant Pizza has great pizza at it. Really like the Cheesesteak Factory's pizza lately, honestly, has been hitting the spot. I love that big old thick crust. I know it's different than what I normally love, but that's always good. And sometimes I'll even go crazy and get a little spicy pie by the slice, whatever toppings on there, and then I'm not scared to dabble in some Papa John's, though, that garlic butter dipping sauce. But definitely the Frank Pepe's and Sally's pizza out there. And if I'm just going regular pizza, I'm probably going to go sausage and a little bit of, some mushrooms on there.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I've never had a brick oven pizza, but that's kind of one I've wanted to try. Number two, what is your favorite NFL team?
Oh, man. So, even though I've lived most of my life in Wisconsin, I'm a huge Giants fan. I was born out east. And, my big alibi and the big thing that helped me do it is, my dad was a Giants fan. Growing up, though, I was always a fan of, different players. So I loved the Bears growing up. I did like the Packers a lot for a long time because Brett Favre was really cool. And I was always told as a little kid I was going to be the next Reggie White. Little did I know I'd stop growing at 5'9", 5'10", and be 175 pounds my last college game. So definitely not Reggie White-esque. But the New York Giants, honestly, probably one of my favorite players for them ever was Tiki Barber. I've also loved Weatherford. I've loved, Diassi. they've just had a great history of guys, and honestly, getting to watch Eli and all the incredible plays that their guys have made in the huge moments. Victor Cruz with his little cha-cha and his shuffle, everything. That's just been incredible. And even like the more recent years, like watching Saquon try and turn him around, the pretty electric year with Danny Jones this year and Brian Daboll getting it going. And, of course, obviously the Odell years where he was just an electric player. Just with slant could be a touchdown from 80 yards out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know many Giants fans, so it's exciting to meet one. Number 3, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
See, this is one that always, it jumps around for me. I would love flight. I think that'd be a really convenient and cool one. But I think right now, honestly, if I could somehow multitask way better, if I was just an instant, telekinetic multitasker, I think that would be perfect. The flight thing always seemed cool growing up, but the heights and, the crazy winds that we get over here, probably not ideal without having a ton of flying experience. So, the ability to just multitask with have, a little bit of telekinetic power is kind of like a Professor X type thing, and that way you can kind of get the mind going a little bit, get some things done that you never would have got done, maybe, in the middle of my sleep, like a night person type thing, Rick and Morty style, while I'm getting all those things done. So.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit out of the box, but I love it. I've never really heard someone say that one, but I'm definitely interested. Are you Team LeBron or are you Team MJ?
Oh, man. This is every recruiting visit, we always have this conversation. And this is where, as a guy born in 1992, the stuff MJ did and the shoe, everything, MJ is a different level, player and just figure, I think. Now, I'm not going to take anything away from LeBron as a basketball player because he's changed the NBA in a lot of different ways. He helped the players become more mobile. He made them have to be two-way players. He's really forced the game to, really embrace the player and the celebrity because the NBA is unique compared to the NFL. It's you see someone's face every minute of the game. But I do also think, hey, LeBron's an incredible human being. He's given tons of money back. He was raised by a single mother and a grandmother. The things he has done, you don't ever hear about him being a bad father. His kids are supposed to be, the next big thing in basketball. He's really done a lot of things there. So, I think, as a person, I love LeBron. Everything I've ever heard about him sounds incredible. And then, he's got some acting chops a little bit. Space Jam 2 might have been a bad choice to go, full MJ copycat. But, yeah, I'd probably say it's pretty split, depends on the day. MJ, what he did was just unbelievable. Mm-hmm. He was the guy in the NBA. Any way you looked at it for a 10, 12-year stretch, he was that guy in the NBA. He was, the most popular player, the best player, on the court leader, everything that you look for. LeBron's just done it now for 15, 20 years. I think the only thing that's hurt him is maybe that Dirk, losing to Dirk in the finals and a couple other things, maybe the last couple years with the Lakers.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong either way in that question. It's just very split either way, whether you're Team MJ or LeBron. And my last get-to-know-you question is, what is your favorite song?
Oh, man. I got the weirdest music upbringing of all time. My mom was all ABBA, the Beatles, so Dancing Queen and everything there. And then my dad was really heavy in the crooners. So your Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett, and even into some more modern ones like some Michael Bublé. So it kind of depended on whose car I was in, what I was going to hear. Now, I didn't like the crooners as much because it was a little slower. I did always lave ABBA and all that other stuff growing up because it's a little more fun music. But honestly, I kind of like those kickback, summer day type music. Sugar Ray is probably my favorite artist of all time. Fly, Every Morning, all that music. That just it just makes me want to go to a place and relax. I've been loving the Dirty Heads lately. But then, honestly, I kind of have to listen to everything a little bit. Drake has been great lately. Pretty much whatever pops up. And then I've kind of had a huge, Avicii phase in my life. And then when I was in college, I loved all the various random college rappers, the Hoodie Allens, the Mike Studs, who's now just Mike, Sammy Adams, all those guys, and Mac Miller, kind of my adult music choice were that and, EDM a little bit. So kind of a little bit all of it, I guess. Yeah. A little bit.
Okay, so I know we're going to get into the real questions now, the real questions, quote unquote. I know you mentioned earlier you're from Connecticut. You spent a lot of time in Wisconsin, but now you're in North Dakota. So, you're used to the cold weather, but how have you been enjoying your time in Minot so far? almost a year, I believe you've been here.
Yeah, so since July, honestly, like it was kind of cool coming to Minot in the summer because when I lived in North Dakota before, I kind of moved in right before football season starts, so you didn't really get time to enjoy like the nice, beautiful weather. But it reminds me a lot of like northern Wisconsin and Connecticut, where like we got a little bit of the hills, we got beautiful green everywhere because it snows enough in the winter that like everything's lush and beautiful. Like the summer times in Minot are just absolutely incredible. Like everything's outdoors, everything's open. There's the huge state fair. There's food trucks everywhere every night, and like the sun doesn't set till like midnight. So like day literally starts at like 6 a.m. And if you're tired at 9:30, well, like it's hard to fall asleep because the sun's not down yet, you know, for another 2 hours. So I love that part of it, and honestly, like I really love the people here in Minot. And there's a lot of things to do. Like I can go to a mall, I can get whatever I want. I could fly right out of here in Minot. It goes to a bunch of different places. I mean, like. Honestly, that's a couple of big things, and like the people in the city, and like it really, they care about Minot State too, which is really cool to see. Like, you know, I've been in college towns before where it's like the school might not even exist and no one would know. You know, here in Minot, it's like, man, like people know Minot State. People are proud to be Beavers no matter what corner of the city they're in. You know, so I think that's pretty cool here.
Yeah, perfect. So when did your love for coaching start? Is that something you saw yourself doing as you grew up, or is that something like, oh, I really love football, I think I could do this?
I mean, yeah, there was always probably that thing in the back of my head that I wanted to coach. Like some of my favorite moments were when my dad was my coach. I had some awesome coaches growing up, Gino Klein. Guys like, I mean, that's no one anyone would know. He's my flag football coach growing up. But like, and then all my youth baseball coaches. And then I had a really great high school strength coach, Mike Nitka. He was president of like the National Strength Conditioning Association. And every summer when I was later in my high school career, I'd help out with the youth middle school. And then when I was in my college career, I'd go back and I'd help out with the high school athletes. So that kind of gave me that exposure to coaching. But I was always thinking medical school, law school, and like the coaches that I had, who I really remember. Like I really remember like all my coaches just asking me about my day, asking me about things that like mattered to me more than just treating me as like a commodity. Like Coach Nagy, my freshman year, just asking me about like, hey man, how's everything going? Like I know you've been struggling a little bit. Like it seems like something's off with you a little bit. And yeah, so I had good like talks with him, Coach Esposito, all guys from my freshman year. And then when I went to my second college at Western Illinois, like. You know, my head coach, we had a real good bond. All my position coaches, anyone, like, really great bond. And I just really wanted to kind of be that for the next guy. You know, so I started off helping out guys get that connection to colleges, specifically like specialists reaching out to schools because there's so many of them. And I really wanted to get into the college game. I thought that was the next step. And I got to intern at University of North Dakota as a quality control, recruiting analyst, all different titles. Really just to help out with everything. And I got to run my own room at Wisconsin Lutheran. And as a young coach who's been doing it really since only like 2015, like there's still things I can keep growing on. But I think the big things are like just always making it about the players and, you know, doing the best for them every single day. I think there's got to be that honest communication. There's got to be that honest help for them. And, you know, I got to give everything I got for them. I want them to really experience whatever success they possibly can from the game, keep that love of football all throughout their entire career. And for some guys, I mean, like maybe coaching is the better spot for them, you know. But for many guys, like, hey, unfortunately, like football ends right after high school, so there's a lot of ways to get involved. But for the guys who are, like, I'm still fortunate enough to coach in college and recruit and do everything, like, I want them to know that I'm going to be myself always. And I'm going to be there for you. Like, so just be honest with me, and I'm going to be honest with you. And, you know, we're going to have a great relationship. And I'm going to push you to be better. I'm going to be demanding. Sometimes I'll be a little nuts and high energy, but I want to do that to, you know, see that, like, hey, it wasn't good enough. Like, we got to push forward and be better. So I think that was one of the big things was, like, the coaches who really pushed me to be better and made me a better man. And honestly, football gave me, like, everything, a lot of the biggest things in my life. Like, not like a sense of like that's only how I identify, but like a lot of my best friends, guys who are going to stay at my wedding, like I met them through football, whether it's through my coaching career, whether it's through, you know, guys I played with. Like that's really crazy, and I want all guys to experience that. And even getting to coach women, that was a different other experience. Like, hey, that gave a brand new opportunity to people to go get an education on scholarship that they would have never gotten years before, and hopefully I positively affected their lives so that way they're going to go and affect the next generation just the same here as hopefully these guys do that I've been fortunate enough to coach, and will keep coaching.
Yeah, and I know you said you've only been coaching since about 2015, and you have worn a bunch of hats. Like I believe I mentioned, and I think you briefly kind of mentioned. Has there been a favorite coaching moment you've had, whether that's a certain player or a certain role, or I think that kind of makes sense. Has there been a favorite moment, I guess, that you've had coaching?
I mean, there's been a lot of moments. I think like it kind of depends on like the day, what's been the favorite moment. Like, when you're in a good mood, like you always need those ones to pick you back up. I think a couple of my favorite moments were like, hey, seeing our team at Kansas Wesleyan like come back and get a big win over a tough rival, right? Like when we beat Avila, or like when we won the conference championship, that was a lot of fun. And then getting to go on those playoff road trips, like those were really cool. But honestly, I think like a couple of the big things have always been like the off season, just like, hey, when we've had like the really good like team hangouts and good cookouts, like those have always been a lot of fun where you kind of get to talk to a player you might not talk to as much, and you're like, hey, that was actually kind of cool. Like that guy's a good guy. Like I can understand why he's here, and like I think in a way that player appreciates us too. I think the opportunity to get to coach a couple All-Americans and guys who've really like succeeded and get that shot, like that's really cool. Like those guys who I feel like I just helped them. There was one young man I coached at my last college, and it was right when the COVID shut everything down, and he was going through a lot already. Like his mom was passing away, and then her treatment kind of had to stop a little bit because the hospitals kind of shut down and got overwhelmed, and unfortunately he lost his mom, and I felt like, man, that was like crazy. Like I just met this young man like 2 or 3 weeks earlier, and me and him then had a good bond. We would kind of sit around, just eat pizza, kind of be that person that he just needed to talk to. Like that's the stuff like that I really loved in coaching. I've also loved like just the times like people would just stop by my office. Like I'm just getting work done, and I just all of a sudden players come by my office and we're just chatting for like 30 minutes about like not even scheme, but just life. Like, hey man, like how's everything going? How are your parents doing? Like why'd you choose Minot? Why'd you choose whatever school I've been at? Stuff like that. Those are kind of my favorite moments. And then there's also been the moments where like, hey, I really learned something. I'm a very high energy person. I'm very like invested in everything I do. So like if something goes wrong, like I might lose it, sometimes like kind of full outburst. And that's like some of those moments that I got to remember that kind of like, man, keep it grounded. Like getting those outbursts makes it about me. But it's like, man, I just get so frustrated not seeing these guys get that success. Or like, hey, if something doesn't go right, it's like, man, it's so planned out. Like these guys are going to love it. It's going to be great for them. They're going to get a lot out of it. And then if it doesn't go perfectly well, it's like, man, maybe I got to rethink it, or maybe I got to go back to the drawing board. Or maybe, hey, I just got to deep breath, go. And yeah, I mean, like there's been some times though where somebody needs to be, chewed out a little bit, and hopefully that wakes them up. Sometimes, hey, that loud snap in your ears or that big clap in your face, that's gonna get people going. And I think like I kind of had a weird experience. Like we talked about wearing a ton of different hats. Like my first year in coaching, I was technically listed as like video intern, and then all of a sudden they started throwing more hats. Like, hey, you gravitate towards recruiting wise, so now you're going to help us do this paperwork, be a recruiting assistant, a recruiting analyst. And then, hey, you do the video stuff, video associate coordinator, and then, hey, offensive quality control, special teams quality control. Then like all these different things, like even having the unique opportunity to start a program in a sport that had never been done before at the college level was really cool. And like helping a program get its first ever wins, creating an entire program culture, recruiting everyone that program has ever known. Like that's crazy stuff. Like then seeing it like pay off with like, hey, having winning records, going to play in NFL stadiums, like seeing one of the players you recruited get National Player of the Year, like stuff like that. Just like it's crazy that like these little small decisions can just have these huge ripple effects. And I think that's like the coolest thing in coaching. Like you don't know when that ripple effect is really going to be dropped into the pond and kind of gravitate with all these people.
Yeah. And I can't imagine how beneficial some of those relationships and experiences have been for you, not only as a coach and a person, but for those players that you've also had those experiences with. But what led you to choose Minot State over any other potential offers or opportunities you may have had last year, coming out of, I believe it was Kansas Wesleyan you were at right before you came here?
Right. So, I mean, as of like December of that year, I kind of knew like my time at Kansas Wesleyan was coming to an end. I love the place. I love the people I got to coach, both the men and the women, everybody. But then I spent the time, as the women's head coach, and it was just a lot. It was a lot over my 2 years there, working constantly, being the primary recruiter, being the offense coordinator, being with the women's side, and there was just a lot in that 2 years. So like always being in season, never having like that time where you can kind of be down in season or just focus on one thing, it divides you a lot. It gets you pretty thin. Honestly, like Minot's always been a place that I've like pegged to be like, man, this could be a really awesome place and a really awesome program, and it really is. But like from afar, you're like, okay, like it means a lot to the town. The town's great. There's a lot of people here. There's a lot of businesses. There's a lot of everything. It means something to the town. The school, people can get in. It has a low starting cost. A lot of positive factors right there that you could see from an outsider that like this could be you could do things here, right? And then the big pieces that kind of like found the places, like knowing a couple guys like Coach DeYoung, a young man I was fortunate enough to coach early on in my career, who's now on staff here, like having that in and having that connection. And then, it was the right spot at the right time. They need a special teams coordinator. I thought it was good that I could branch out to receivers. It taught me a lot of things as a coach. Getting to run special teams again taught me a lot of things as a coach with like collaboration and other things. But that's really like why Minot, like over anything else. Like, and I think the D2 model is kind of the perfect model for college athletics, right? Where, there's some scholarship money involved where you can help out the people who need it based on their talent or need, or anything like that. But there's also it's important enough to these students that there is that job and investment attribute, but there's still people first. Like, it's not like it's truly only a wins and losses bottom line, ESPN talking heads type business at this level. It's more like, hey, this young man's going to eventually be a biochemist, and he's right now our starting right tackle, and we got to get him right on Saturday. But he's still a normal person. He's still got to go to classes, still got to do all that stuff. He still might have a job. Like, there's so many things. It's like we're truly developing like 110 really well-rounded, incredible human beings every single day.
Yeah. So I think we both kind of mentioned a little bit, but you do play a vital role in Minot State football's recruiting process. So what exactly is your role in recruiting, and how did that get started here?
So I've always been like gravitated a lot towards the recruiting side of football. Part of it is both my parents were salespeople. I think that's it. I feel pretty comfortable talking to most people. My big advice to anybody in sales is get to know your customer. Ask questions, talk less. You got 2 ears, one mouth. Figure out what's important to them. So I think that was something Coach Shields might have saw on my resume, like kind of looking over the guys on staff, like stuff we've done, and then kind of being the first carryover really where it's like, hey, I kind of knew the processes here at Minot State. Let's get this class going. Let's keep this thing continued and go further. So like that's really what it is. Do a lot of the planning of the weekend visits. Obviously, at this level, we're very much collaboration, right? Like I've kind of got to spearhead it and do things behind the scenes so that way hopefully stuff's smooth and no one notices anything, right? So as far as like the planning of visits, then there's a lot of the, hey, what are we looking for? What's the head coach going? How can I find my resources to go contact somebody and everything else to make sure this is the right human being? So kind of making sure everybody's on the same page as far as where's our scholarship dollars at? Where's everything at? Like, how many spots do we have left? What are our specific needs? Like, or that everybody's doing their thorough vetting research on it while the head coach has to balance having hands in everything and letting people do their stuff. So that way we can make sure we're on top of stuff and it keeps moving forward. And then obviously there's the processing stuff. Like, it's kind of unfortunate, but like literally for a young man deciding to play college football, signing on that dotted line is literally just the first step to, hey, now we got to do our housing. Now we got to make sure our FAFSA is in, all these other things. So I think that's my other big piece is making sure that stuff keeps moving forward and then that we know we are targeting the right people for Minot State, right? Because we believe character should never be compromised for talent, right? Especially with a team that has a great like culture and built into it where like people young men are really well respected and seen in town. They're seen as good young men more than anything. Now we just want to keep helping them step up the town, and we got to be aggressive in recruiting. That's one of our big things. Like, believe why not Minot instead of like why Minot? Why not Minot?
Yeah, and then I saw that you served on the AFCA Professional Development Series Committee. Could you tell me a little bit? Could you tell me a little bit more about what that committee is and what it does and like how you got started with that committee itself?
Yes. So for us, our committee, honestly, it was from one of my good friends and coaching mentors. Told me how to get involved with the AFCA, and I think a lot of coaches should be. The Professional Development Series Committee, unfortunately, disbanded because, well, stuff's moved a lot more to technology. Everybody's got the list of codes and stuff on their phone to get professional development credit to make sure everything's better that way. But I got involved, and it was a great way to meet more coaches. Coach Ferrier is the head of the committee, and he really got us in line, and that way we could make sure that there's more coaches getting involved in the professional development side of things at the convention. So like going to see other coaches talk and have clinic talks and everything, right, to make sure that, hey, these coaches who spend time out of their convention talk to go present and prepare a presentation there is really vital. And now I'm on the E2 Assistant Coaches Committee, which means like, hey, the assistant coaches, we get a say a little bit. So we'll have assistant coaches from all different conferences at the D2 level, all different colleges, and what we'll talk about is like, hey, any sort of big rule changes, right? Like, why should this be a rule change? Like things like the redshirt rule, like D2 with, not everybody being completely full scholarship, right? The depth can be an issue. So like, hey, having guys be able to redshirt without burning it. Like the old rule used to be the second a guy plays in one snap of a game, that whole year counts towards his eligibility. And sometimes a guy's not quite physically ready, or, hey, something happens a couple games in where they need that year back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so sorry about that. I think you kind of brought it up a little bit, but as a coach and a leader on this team, how important is it for you to not only help these young men become better football players on the field, but just better people in general off the field?
Well, I think the better people part is number one. The better people part is all it will reflect and go on to the field, right? A guy who's a better person, someone who takes care of their business, we're going to see them to get their best and maximum potential on the field. They're going to be someone who's going to be steps forward, right, rather than steps behind, right? Or someone that, hey, we're constantly micromanaging this, so they're never going to reach their max potential, right? And the other thing is, number one, like eventually their football career is going to end, so they just need to be prepared as a person, student, worker, everything else to go out into the real world and be their best.
Yeah. So for any recruits or guys in the transfer portal that might watch this video, what is one message you'd like to give them about not only Minot State, but Minot State football?
Well, I mean, first about Minot State, I mean, it's a place that really means a lot to everybody in the town. It's a place that has a lot of incredible people at it, and it has an incredible town that backs it up. There's things to do, places to see. It's 50,000 people, at what people might initially think is the edge of civilization, but it's really a nice haven right there in north central North Dakota with an airport, everything else for your life to be the most convenient it possibly can and the best it possibly can. As far as, for our coaching staff specifically, I think you're going to see guys who are going to really coach you hard. They're going to truly believe in you. They're going to push you every single day. They're going to be masters of what they know how to do and what they need to do for you to be the best player and person possible, and we're going to be fully committed to the entire person. That's our number one thing in recruiting, right? We're going to help you structure your day academically. We're going to help you structure your day socially. We're going to help you structure your day and be the best possible person on and off the field, so that way off the field you're hitting your max potential, which will make it so much easier to hit your potential on the field, right? Obviously, our school has great affordability, right? That we can fly to anywhere. So really, Minot State can truly be an option for anybody. And right now, our entire goal as a staff is to take what Minot State's been doing and amplify it, turn it up, right? Evaluate it, structure it, and level it up in notches that are going to make it a perfect spot for guys no matter where they're coming from, whether they're a transfer from a different level, whether they're a guy who is seeking that opportunity after his junior college, or whether they're a high school student athlete who really just needs that place to go prove themselves and go perform. And we're going to be finding the elite players, and you're going to be finding the elite human beings here next to you every single day in our locker room, and to really make it a special experience for you as a player, right? We believe in win all day long, and that's what we're going to do.
Perfect. Can't forget about Waddle. And last question is, speaking of recruits and transfer guys, where can they find you specifically or any other coaches if they wanted to reach out about potentially coming here or having you look at like their film or something?
So any recruit can definitely find us on social media. I work to be pretty active on Twitter at Coach Fam, F-A-M, like family. And then any of our coaches really have a big social media presence as well. Coach Marchand does, Coach Shields, Coach Bruno, Coach McBride, Coach Garnett, Coach DeYoung, Coach Simi. Really all of our coaches, Coach Jeremiah Johnson, they all have a presence there to be noticed and to be seen and to, get our names out there. And then all of our emails are available right on the website. I think one of the big things, if you are reaching out to coaches, is to be prepared, right? Have your information ready to go. Don't have to go dig up your transcripts. Have your transcripts ready. Have your track times ready. Have any sort of thing that can make you stand out, be ready, and then make sure your film and your cut-ups are all on point so that way you're ready to go to be evaluated in the most sincere and honest way possible. And that's one thing is our coaches are going to be honest with anyone we're talking to, right? Not just from a financial aspect, but from a talent aspect to a person aspect, right? If a guy is the right fit. And I think that's a big thing too that guys need to be ready for and, to be excited about. I'd rather have a coach who's honest with me, and that's where guys can reach out to me through any of that. And then, of course, we also have our MSU Beavers FB accounts on Twitter and Instagram, which are great ways to get a hold of us as well.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'd like to thank you for coming on today and taking the time for speaking with me. And once again, this is Coach Mike Pham for Minot State Football. Big fan of ball, big fan of brick oven pizza. You can find him on Twitter. You can find any of the other coaches on Twitter or other social medias. But that is all I have for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Thank you for tuning in, and I will catch you all next time. Peace.